So good evening, everyone. Practical Cities initiative is for and by young urban enthusiasts aiming to make a knowledge bank for making cities more livable and sustainable. So in November 2020, we floated a CFS challenge, which is known as Call for Student and Young Professional Challenge, in which at least a lot of students and professionals submitted their thesis, a DRP or case studies of projects that they have worked upon. So we got around 40 plus entries, and among them the best entries related to urban planning and design would be presenting it today. With this, the persons the mentors who helped us the entire scrutinization process and helping us to make this challenge much more good. I would like to introduce Nimit sir and Manas sir to this call. Thank you, Nimit sir and Manas sir, for helping us throughout the entire scrutinization and helping through this challenge, CFS challenge, to make it much more successful. This is just a starting. We'll be doing this much more in 2021 year also. With this, I would like to applaud and invite all the shortlisted applicants of urban planning and design theme. I would like to invite Satorupa, Aditi, and Shikha to this meeting. Hello everyone, and thanks for joining this live conversation. It's really good to have you all on this one platform, all the students, urban professionals, and the experienced mentors. So with this, I would like to not waste the time of the viewers, and I would like Satorupa to present her topic. Before that, I would just like to introduce her. Satorupa did his master's in planning in urban housing specialization, and she is currently an intern in Urban Livability Forum. So I would like Satorupa to present her topic.
Okay. So hello everybody, and thank you Jay for introducing me, and thank you Practical Cities for shortlisting my work. So today I will be about my work that I did as a dissertation, basically a DRP, which was funded by CEPT University, and my guide was Madhu ma'am. So this is a work on the industrial development in a small town, and my case study was Morbi, which is in Gujarat. The main aim of the study was to look into how the industrial development is particularly affecting the urban morphology there, and what were the key factors behind the development of this industry. So with these aims and objectives, I would like to talk about the scope of the study, because my study is very good because it serves as a case study to supplement the understanding of the small towns, which are basically based on mono-industrial pattern. Also, this study serves as a link between three parameters: urban development, urban planning, and industrial management. So my study period is 1971 to present, and 2031 is the horizon year. So the study area is Morbi urban agglomeration, to be specific, and it is under Morbi district. So there is at present Morbi municipality and 6 outgrowths. The study region is very well connected with other urban centers of Gujarat, and the total population at present is 2.5 lakhs according to the latest census. Now this administrative setup, it is very important because the study area has been facing numerous changes since its inception. So in 1991, it got the status of urban agglomeration, and after that till 2018, there have been many changes. So because of this inclusion and exclusion of the plots and outgrowths, so at present the municipality area is 26.22 square kilometer. Now coming to the growth of the ceramic industry, which is the main crux of the study. So as I was talking with the residents there, then I was talking with the industrial owners and also the other officials. So what I found is that a very unique factors for the industrial development there. So first, the location is very good because it is very good to near the Kutch, near it is Jamnagar, so which are the main raw material providers for the industry. Also, there is this local entrepreneurship. So the industry basically started in 1990, and it is under the private domain, But the local entrepreneurship, they have invested so much, the entrepreneurs. So that is the main reason for the industrial prosperity here. So at present, there are 900 units. And I would like to mention in this regard that India at present is second in terms of ceramic production after China. And in India, around 90% is contributed by Morbi only. So it is also called the ceramic hub. So now talking about the area covered. So basically, I have tried to show the how the industry has grown, and definitely one indicator is areal expansion. So till 2020, it has expanded around 175%, which is tremendous in terms of industries. Again, the annual turnover is at present 486 billion, and in this graph, I have added this because it is very interesting to see that how after 2005, the turnover, then the number of units have actually increased very drastically. This was because 2005 was the year when there was this initiation of the technological advancement, also the beginning of the efficient production. So that is why there is the resultant increase in the number of units, also the total production, and definitely a huge turnover. So coming to the other aspect of the study, which is urban morphology. So first I will try to document the land use pattern there. So the first land use year, the first year is 1971. This is based on the development plan for Morbi municipality, because Morbi was only a municipality then. So it proposed the highest amount of land under residential usage. But this was just a plan. It was it was actually not implemented. Then in 2014, again SCP design firm, they tried to document the present land use pattern for that year. So which shows there is a high amount of land under the agricultural usage. Then in 2020, the present land use pattern, which is documented through site visit, which shows that there is the emerging mixed use pattern in the residential, in the central part, which is basically the mixture of residential, institutional, and commercial usage. Now coming to the analysis, like what is the actual change? So the very good influences are that the maximum change was observed under the agricultural category, basically because of the inclusion of the peripheral areas, which are predominantly rural in nature, and predominantly there is the agrarian economy. Also, there is increase in the residential area and the industrial area. Now, also I have tried to document land rates. This depend basically because this land use pattern, they affect the land rate. Now, for this, I have divided the inter-study area in 4 parts based on the transit routes. So this shows that the west part and the south part, okay, these 2 zones are very contrast to the other 2 zones, because these 2 zones are seeing a very huge increase in terms of the land rate, the market rate of land, unlike the other 2 zones. Okay, so this is because the east part has the proximity of the industry, and the north part there is the lacking infrastructure. Also there is religious segregation, which is hindering the residential development there. And the other 2 zones, they have good connectivity, good infrastructure. That is basically why there is the high demand. This is also very prevalent in the residential pattern. So in this south zone, there is the bungalows coming up, but in the north zone, there is only these 2 BHK apartments. That is also very lower price as compared to the other zones. Now, I have also tried to document the housing typologies there, so which shows that affordable units are found in the eastern part, which is where the laborers or maybe sometimes the brokers for the industries, they stay. But in the other 2 parts, especially in the west and south, there is the concentration of the affluent immigrants. They can afford that, so they try to shift in the bigger space. They try to move in the bigger ticket size, like 3 BHK and bungalows and semi-detached housing. Based on all this discussion, I have tried to highlight what are the growth nodes on basis of which the entire study area is growing. So I have found 3. The first is in Mahendranagar, which is near the industry. Definitely there is a limited residential development there, but there is the other kind of real estate development, for example, hospitality and also the business sector. So there is this development, and definitely there is a proximity to National Highway 27, which is also contributing to the growth. Then coming to the western part, which is near Morbi bypass, and another one in the Bhaktinagar circle in the southwestern part. So these two areas are facing a huge demand for residential land, and this residential development is also being contributed by the fact that the wind direction here is from southwest to northeast. Now, since the industries are in the northeastern part, so definitely the pollutants can't come to this side, and those who can afford, those who have a those who belong to the high income group, they prefer to stay here because this area is clean, the environment quality is good, and also the connectivity and infrastructure facilities are also better. So before I jump to the interventions, I would like to mention the population forecast that I have done for 2031 to suggest better interventions. So I have basically applied three methods for population and for residential land projection. So here I have seen that what can be the possible population size by 2031, and my results show that it will be 3 lakhs to 5.5 lakhs. So before that, I have also tried to highlight some issues that I have found. So first, there is this lacking urban governance because there is no concrete map available in from the administrative sector, and that is because this huge political influence there. Also, there is this emerging urban development around the major roads, which is hindering the traffic flow. Also, there is very negligible green spaces, and then the urban growth is very unbalanced. It is not unidirectional, rather it is only faced in the two directions. Now coming to the interventions, I have tried to suggest some as per my understanding. So I suggest that there should be a strategic urban development, and also the urban development there should be more towards the infill pattern, because what I noticed is there are many open lands, many underused lands. So these lands should be first filled before the expansion so that the peripheral areas don't get affected. Also, green spaces can be developed along the river banks, and for the prevention of urban development, stringent rules can be implemented. So in conclusion, I would like to mention that the industrial development as a whole has basically affected four sectors. First is there is this increasing population size. Definitely there is the demand for labor, and people start coming from neighboring states, neighboring districts, and there has been the increase in total population size. Again, simultaneously there has been improved connectivity, development of state highways, and also many district roads that has augmented the industrial growth there. Simultaneously, there is the better living standards and an overall increase in the land rate and real estate prices. So in conclusion, I would like to say what I noticed a very interesting fact is that industrial units there in Morbi, they don't fall entirely inside the Morbi municipality boundary, or sometimes even outside the urban agglomeration boundary, but still they are affecting the entire study area so so hugely. That is a very interesting thing to note, like how only one dependence on only one industry can affect the urban morphology so hugely. Again, the present scenario that I have actually highlighted here, and the suggestions that I have tried to highlight, I have tried to recommend, those are very important, and also they open a scope for the future research, I might say, because there are many small towns these are still unexplored, and I might say there is a chance, a very good chance, to document the problems there and to document the issues and to highlight how the economic development and how overall urban development can be done there. So yeah, that is it, and thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Satorupa, for this wonderful presentation and learning of Morbi about industrial area and also affecting various housing that you mentioned. So going from housing, it's also important to understand the heritage of a city, if a city has a heritage properties or not. So I would like to invite Aditi. Aditi is an urban planner and architect, and she is a senior executive in design strategy vertical and Godrej Properties Limited. Aditi has worked upon transferable development rights (TDR) mechanism for conservation and improvement of heritage precinct in 𝗬𝗫𝗀 Ahmedabad. So Aditi, if you can share your experience and entire case study, it would be good.
So thanks a lot for the introduction. And I'm presenting my project themed as planning of urban areas with heritage value. The case of transferable development rights for conservation and improvement of heritage precinct. Majority of the Indian cities have grown from their historic urban cores, which remain at the heart of urban areas, facing deterioration and simultaneously inheriting a unique character, ranging from residential mixed neighborhood or commercial hub to sacred spaces. With rapid urbanization and urban expansion, the old historic cores continue to remain congested, neglected, and plagued with decaying infrastructure. This results in the change of land use, exodus of locals, and influx of new residents with no affiliation or awareness about the history of heritage of the place. Also, it instigates change in built use, gentrification, and placelessness. Dealing with the problem of conserving a large lived-in heritage precinct is quite different. The aim is not only to preserve increasingly numerous tangible items of cultural properties, but also to safeguard complexes which deals with the intangible aspects of cultural identity, significance, authenticity, and beliefs and traditions. The owners of the building in these areas are inproficient in maintaining their structures due to lack of monetary support, leading to out-migration and poor quality of life. So this project actually focuses on heritage precinct in Ahmedabad to assess the existing regulations, relaxations, and incentives such as transferable development rights or HTDR, and proposes recommendation to make them effective for the purpose of conservation and improvement. So like the majority of the Indian cities, the walled city of facing the same issue until a decade ago, before the city began a serious effort to survey and record and enlist its rich architectural heritage. The year of coordinated efforts by CET University Ahmedabad and AMC, that is Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation, resulted in city receiving the UNESCO World Heritage City status in 2017. Meanwhile, in 2014, the Ahmedabad Urban Development Authority, for the first time ever, included a new set of regulations and an incentive-based mechanism to encourage conservation of heritage structures in walled city of Ahmedabad. It has been 5 years since these regulations are enforced. Therefore, one of the main objectives of this study was to understand how these regulations and incentives have been playing out in reality. As per the Heritage Transferable Development Rights Incentive, the structure of highest value with townscape level importance are graded in 2A category and are eligible for an incentive of 50% of the total FSI. Structures with high and moderate value, that is grade 2B and 3, can avail up to 30% of the total utilized FSI. Therefore, there is no TDR or other incentives or regulations provided for the non-listed structures, which may not be the heritage structures in itself, but continue to contribute to the character of the precinct. In context of Ahmedabad, HTDR is a conservation mechanism which does not depend on government funding and uses market-based incentives to create benefits for owners. It facilitates unlocking the potential of underdevelopment residential plots with heritage listed structures and development rights being redirected to areas planned to accommodate growth and development. For this purpose, this study has taken one of the traditional residential fabric known as Dhal as a case to assess the incentives availed in form of HTDR, its sufficiency and effectiveness. Dhal is one of the oldest inhabited areas of Ahmedabad, founded by Sultan Ahmad Shah in 1411 AD. The origins of this city goes all the way back to 8th century settlement called Ashaval, located on 𝗟𝗲𝗄𝗏 which is now a part of Dhal. So being the genesis point of only World Heritage City of India, Dhal inherits global and national significance. The pole with dense clustering of 540 traditional houses exhibit rich mix of architectural styles and motifs evolved during Solanki, Sultanate, Mughal, Maratha, and British times. The area of the study consists of 0.8 hectares, including 126 structures, out of which 21 are listed and graded in different categories based on their significance. The development regulations avail different amount of HTDR incentive to these structures based on their graded categories, which was already mentioned in the previous slides. The functioning of this HTDR mechanism depends on 3 components. First, which must actually work in a coordinated fashion in order to be effective to the purpose. First, the supply side, which comprises of HTDR generating properties. Second, the demand side, which comprises of HTDR receiving developments. And the third, the transaction mechanism, enabling trading between buyers and sellers. With the idea of understanding this market in depth, an in-depth assessment of all the 3 components was carried out during this study. The supply side analysis of HTDR market focuses on the incentives mentioned in development regulations for the owners of heritage listed structures, the process to avail the HTDR certificate as provided by AMC, and the awareness factor among the poll residents. So according to the study, the income generated by HTDR was grossly insufficient to cover the cost of repairs, improvements, and conservation of the heritage structure. In an analysis conducted for 2 heritage buildings in Pole, 𝗬𝗨𝗨 and 𝗵𝗂𝗨 House, the cost of conservation was about 4.7 times and 2.5 times higher than the HTDR value available, respectively. This is due to the insufficient incentive granted to the listed structures and the small plot sizes resulting in less built-up area, generally ranging from 50 to 100 square meters. Therefore, HTDR of only 50 or 30% result in considerable inadequate tradable amounts. The supply is also restricted due to the complex, time-consuming, and expensive process provided by AMC. At the beginning of this process, the property owners need to submit a series of 20 documents for the application with no guidance and monetary support. Also, the process requires follow-up with 5 different officials, departments, and committees at different stages. Even if an owner manages to apply for it, she would be availed only 20% of the total HTDR value before completion of the conservation work, resulting in her investing for 80% of the total work on site. Apart from this complex process, only 17% of the poll residents are aware about this mechanism. This explains why just 20 owners have received HTDR certificate in the complete walled city of Ahmedabad, with 2,236 structures listed as and graded as heritage structures since 2014. Therefore, considering the insufficient HTDR incentive for all grades of heritage listed structures, there is a need to increase the same by minimum 150%, from 50 to 30% to cover the cost of conservation and application. Similarly, incentives should also be provided to non-listed structures and other structures which contribute to the character of the precinct. The process to avail HTDR can be simplified and made affordable for the owners by eliminating irrelevant application documents and providing funding and assistance for services to prepare the proposal. Also, the issuance of HTDR certificate and minimum 100% HTDR before the commencement of work on site can facilitate the process and provide guarantee for owners to avail loans. And the last, additional HTDR can also be awarded to landowners for submitting the proposal within a certain period from notification. Now coming to the demand side, the built floor space market of Ahmedabad has other alternative tools and mechanisms apart from HTDR, such as purchasable FSI and slum TDR, which are more attractive to the buyers due to the availability of large tradable areas and open market, which is driven by demand. Apart from this, these mechanisms clearly highlight the sending and receiving areas for transfer of development rights, unlike TDR. Currently, the HTDR market has no clear mechanism connecting buyers and sellers to enable negotiations and facilitate transactions. For example, a developer looking to buy HTDR will have to collect HTDR from tens of different properties due to the smaller areas available. Negotiations and transaction of these would be prohibitively complex, cumbersome, and time-taking tasks. Instead, it would be easier for her to buy the purchasable FSI directly from the available from the authority. So how can we make HTDR more attractive for the buyers? To begin with, TDR-based mechanism require distinction of sending and receiving zones to be successful in the market. According to the Development Plan 2021, transit-oriented central business district and residential 2 zones hold the maximum potential for regulated development due to high permissible FSI and can be identified as a potential receiving zones for HTDR. Thus, the market will be successful in unlocking potential for absorption of TDR, and at the same time, the revenue source for the urban local body from the purchasable FSI transaction mechanism may not be compromised. The 2 potential zones with maximum FSI and scope of development through TDR are CBD and TOZ with maximum permissible FSI of 5.4 and 4. Let's see how TDR can be utilized in lieu of some percentage of chargeable FSI. So taking the case of CBD, which has the base FSI as 1.8 and maximum permissible FSI as 5.4, we have chargeable FSI as 3.6, which accounts for around 7.2 square kilometers of built floor space. Considering TDR of 2.7 that can be utilized in lieu of some percentage of the total chargeable FSI of 3.6, we get a built floor space about 5.4 square kilometers available to be developed by TDR transfer. Same can be followed for other 3 zones, potential receiving zones. So with the identification of potential receiving zones, let me also make this clear that the gap between demand and supply of built floor space in TDR market is exorbitant. The absorption capacity in HTDR market is approximately 187.5 square kilometer, whereas the supply from the wall city is approximately 0.33 square kilometers. Therefore, there will be no superfluidity of HTDR, as there is more than sufficient demand to absorb all types of TDR as well as the chargeable FSI. Thus, the market is not deficient in demand, but have poor or no transaction mechanism to connect to the buyers and the sellers. So the transfers should be based on negotiations between the buyers and sellers, as in case of cities like Mumbai, Kuala Lumpur, Seattle, or New York. This can be facilitated by proposing a regulatory framework such as a TDR bank or exchange center, which will allow HTDR from listed and contributing structures to be purchased and held until a buyer could be found. The same will be responsible for formation of records of all the TDR available in the market, making them available to the public or NGOs for easier trade and initiating negotiations. Many metropolitan cities have used different models of TDR as an incentive-based mechanism to achieve various policy goals and tap the unutilized potential of the land, including conservation and restoration of heritage structures. Although there are various other mechanisms and tools available, such as tax benefit waivers, debt-based and transaction incentives, regulatory reforms, etc., the part of this research work specifically focuses on HTDR for improving the heritage precinct. The case taken in this paper is of a residential mixed-use precinct with heritage value, and the strategies and tools proposed here can be befitting and applicable for such lived-in precincts in different cities of historic cities of India. So that's it. Thanks a lot.
So thank you, Aditi, for this wonderful presentation. The important things are the demand and supply side of the TDR of heritage value. With this, there's something third person I would like to introduce is Shikha. Shikha has worked upon something new which is different from industrial and heritage value. She has worked upon assessment the impact of heat stress in livelihood sector, and she has taken a case of Jhansi district. Just to have a brief introduction of Shikha. Shikha is currently a faculty at Faculty of Architecture and Planning at AKTU Lucknow, and she's an environmental planner and an architect by profession. So Shikha, welcome to.
Yeah, thank you, Jay, for introducing me. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for this platform to present our work and to contribute some our research work to the practical cities. And now I will be talking about assessing the impact of heat stress on livelihood. And for that, I've taken the case of Jhansi district. First I should talk about some little brief, like how I came to on this topic and what are the backgrounds of this. As we all know, we are talking about the climate change. The climate change is basically a very wider topic, in that we always talk about the global temperature and the heat, global temperature, than the rising of temperature. So as we have seen that the IPCC, the yearly books, has mentioned in his 5th assessment report that the risk associated with the extreme events will continue to increase as the global mean temperatures are increasing day by day. And this we have seen by the heat waves or the heat stress. According to the World Meteorological Organization, heat waves are considered when the maximum daily temperature more than 5 consecutive days exceed the average maximum temperature by 5 degrees Celsius in India. Yet it is not applicable for Indian cities. Right? Heat waves are not considered as a natural calamity in India. We take it as a normal waves, or we call as loo, which we call in Hindi term. And But if we see the records from the past 20 years or even the 25 years, we have seen the temperature is increasing every year. There is a slightly difference, like 0.5 degrees Celsius. That means a lot for that. Also, the heat waves increased. Days have increased by 1184 percentage from the last 40 years, as the heat waves days are increasing, so there is a contribution to the number of deaths also due to heat waves. As we seen in 2006, the heat waves, and in Gujarat side, that was a very huge. So the sectors which are mainly affected as like health, agriculture, food security, the forestry, forestry, it all are happens due to anthropogenic activities and the human contribution for the urban areas we see. Now to tackle the sustainable development goals, it is contributing eight eight goals, which I have already mentioned, and in that it is mainly focusing on the climate action. But as there are some reports have already said that according to International Labour Organization, it says that in 2030 the 2.2 percentage of the working hours worldwide, or the 80 million full-time jobs, will be lost as a result of higher temperature. And in India will lost 5.8 percentage of its working hour due to heat stress. So now moving on, my research question was like how this heat stress affecting the livelihood of the rural areas and its dynamic change with the land use patterns. So there is a need of this study, because in the rural areas, the mostly the farmers or the marginal workers are working on the field in the summers, and they are facing problems. So to move on ahead, the aim and objectives were the developing strategies to reduce the impact of heat stress on livelihood in the rural area of Jhansi district. The first objective is to identify the study area by mapping a hotspot area for heat stress in the region. Objective 2, to assess the livelihood vulnerability to heat stress in study regions. Objective 3, to review policy and programs for addressing heat stress and to analyze the various practices for reducing livelihood vulnerability. The objective 4 was to propose a suitable strategies to include in policies and programs. The Jhansi district is one of the district in the UP, and the total area was 5,024 square kilometer. The mainly area has rural area. The urban area is very less as compared to rural area. There are five number of tehsils. Then there are eight community blocks, and the villages are 818. The total population is around 20 lakhs, and mainly the urban population is very less as compared to rural population. Here the climate played an important role, as Jhansi is one of the district which comes into UP Bundelkhand India, which has this geographical location where the extreme heat and extreme cold is observed. There, as we compare from past 35 years temperature data or the climate data, we can see that April, May, and June has the maximum daily temperature, which goes upon 42 to 40, 42 to 45 also, and the minimum temperature is beyond 10 degrees Celsius, and 10 degrees Celsius, and the rainfall is not very much, but it is to 236 mm. The drought year has experienced a lot there, and like frequency of the drought area has absorbed very much in 2004, 2006, as in 2007, and plus in 2016 there was also a drought year. Now to complete my first objective, to find and identify the hotspot area, I have taken three parameters for that. The first parameter is spatial temporal variation in land surface temperature. For this, I have taken 3 years, that is 2000, 2011, and 2018. And for that, I have taken the one common date, that is 20 May, and that is the period of where we experience the Lu. And in that, it has observed that from May 2000 to May 2018, there is an increase in temperature, in maximum temperature, with 1.7 degrees Celsius. That is a very huge contribution. How the pattern has changed, the surface is getting heated up. In the similar case, the maximum temperature has also have increased. So the difference have come upon from 1 degree Celsius. Then for the parameter 2 is the variation in vegetations. As the same years has considered that, the conclusion was in two CD blocks, it has observed that the Babina, which is I have marked in 2018, which has observed a very much decrease in vegetation. And plus there is another we can see CD block which has every vegetation has decreased, but not as compared to Babina district. For the third parameter was the variation in land use, land cover. There it has observed that from the past from 2005 to 2018, there is an increase in urban areas, and there is an increase in wetlands, but which are in other different city blocks, not where it is of already less come. The forest area has decreased a lot, and plus the built up rural area has increased. Now for that, the two districts I have taken, the CD block districts I have taken, that is one is very high vulnerable area, that comes the Babina CD block, and the least vulnerable area is Mort. After that, which I have compared, like what are the factors which are making these differences. The one in the one district, the one CD block is experiencing temperatures, and the another CD block is on very minimal temperatures. Then I have done the like NDWI, the water index, how the water index has playing. Basically the water table has gone up. There the water bodies have decreased from past 5 years, where people are facing very much problems, which I have observed during my interviews, that they have said they have to walk around 3 to 5 kilometers for drinking water, due to which they are having health problems also. Now moving on my second objective, like to assess the livelihood vulnerability. In that, I have taken the qualitatively and quantitatively both the analysis. For quantitatively, I have done the livelihood vulnerability index, which has 9 indicators and 31 sub indicators, which are related to the heat stress. And from qualitatively data, I have experienced that the typing of roofs are affecting very much, as the tin roofs get heated quickly during the daytime as compared to the cement slabs, and the temperature inside the room become very uncomfortable. As and These are the factors which I've taken up for livelihood vulnerability index. In that, we can see the temperature, the climate is playing a very important role. Then it is affecting on the health. And for adaptive capacity, the physical capital, like the infrastructure, is contributing very much for the excessive drinking water, or the hand pumps, or we can see the electricity, and what kind of houses they are making on. Moving on ahead, for the third objective, like to review and see what are the policies and practices going on the national level or the state levels, as we have already have the action plan, the preventive and management of heat waves in Uttar Pradesh, or in the national level we can say it's heat action plan. But there are still some we are lacking in the lack of governance, as still they are not talking about the land use changing, how the land use is affecting, and what we can do in terms of architecture, we can say, or the infrastructure type for enhancing the livelihood. As the livelihood Uttar Pradesh State Rural Livelihood Mission is there, but they are mainly focusing on the sustainable livelihood from the financial services. They are not talking about the special hours during the heat waves or the extreme temperature that we should think about that. The proposals, the which I really want to contribute in that, the sustainable land management, as the farmers are contributing their days in the land on the farming fields. It is a very local land use planning is very important for monitoring and mapping of the land ecosystem, which covers vegetation, drought development, double crop areas, planning and management for agriculture development. The second is rural development for the housing sectors, improving the housing designs using low-cost measurements. For example, the cool roof tiles, which we are talking about, we are talking in our action plans, but it is not on the ground. We can see that. And then we should talk about the outdoor labor work class, also the reducing the time hours and the protective measures and the safety protocols. The third is important, the heat vulnerability mapping. As India is working on resilience heat beat nowadays, and it has selected 100 cities for heat resilience. For that, they are mainly targeting upon the community outreach to build public awareness, early warning systems, capacity building. But beyond that, we need a mapping of vulnerable areas in the region with the real time temperature data, so that a person can see like what actually the temperature is going on, or what are the areas we should focus on that. And second, as I've taken the case study for the Jhansi, where I have observed that the small farmers and the landless farmers have to contribute in the skill development, like biofertilizer production training, so the jute items, so that their livelihood can maintain. Thank you.
Thank you, Shikha, for this wonderful presentation. I think all the viewers who are viewing this would got a good sense about heat stress mapping in cities of Indian cities or across the world. So with this, I would like to invite all the three shortlisted people who have been got selected for the CFS challenge. If you can come down. Okay. Okay. First of all, congratulations and thank you for presenting today. I think all the people who are viewing this would have got to learn about the Jhansi case study, about the Morbi case study, about the Dhalni Pole heritage value in Ahmedabad. Practical Cities is a knowledge bank, as I told earlier. So people who are viewing this will have a good knowledge about these three places, and they can also get connected to these people and implement the same thing at their own city or a town. Would like Manas sir and Nimit sir to share their feedbacks in this entire scrutinization that they have did, and also comment or ask questions to this three students. Thank you. Nimit sir, if you can.
Thank you, Jay. I think I must say Practical Cities is doing a fabulous job in getting all the master classes and variety of knowledge in this area every week, coming up with something to share with all the viewers. In this particular thing, I think me and Manas, we had a challenge of almost 45 over 45 very good presentations and submissions. The three which got selected, they are variety and they are absolutely brilliant in terms of someone who wants to go into detail of a particular area or a particular case, as you mentioned earlier. And before I hand it over to Manas, my observation and what I would like to know from all three of you professionals is that, of course, if you can share with people watching this, what challenges you faced in terms of your research, how can you, your views on how can you scale this to other parts of India or other parts of the world, the same kind of research? So these are common questions. In particular, I would like to mention to Satorupa, and some of these are questions, some of these are observations or comments. When you look at a city, when you look at a town which is based on a particular type of industry, there have been a lot of work done, and it's about the economic development of that area. And when you're doing the research, you are concentrating on that. And the whole sustainability aspect or urban management aspect, although you are aware of it as a researcher, but gets lost because you want to go into detail of a particular place. But you might want to, as you go forward, and if you continue doing this, you might want to look at, it's well written in Triumphs of the City. You have a number of case studies in that book where they talk about such cities which have developed over an economic industry, based on an industry. So your views on that, whether you looked at Morbi, in Morbi, whether you looked at those aspects or not, we would like to, if you can point out. Aditi, excellent work. Absolutely like that you have looked at a particular aspect of heritage TDR in Ahmedabad in a limited scope, and the precinct of mixed use but housing only. And you also have benchmark and best practices of other cities and other places in the world, part of your research. You well done on that. My question, and also again, is I want you to comment on that. What if you come across not just housing, but a place which is a government building, for example, or a museum, or something which has been there as part of the history in that area? Like Delhi is getting developed now, and Varanasi is getting developed now. So there are number of buildings and built spaces which are of significance to our history. How do you take care of those? Who takes care of those? Is responsible for it? Citizens responsible for it, or can they have a mechanism? Your view as a young professional on that would be brilliant. That would be nice. And Shikha, thank you for pointing out an interesting and important area which is generally being ignored in all the discussions we do these days in urban planning and urban management. So you have pointed out a heat test, which is an important thing. And yes, you did mention in the end that there are some initiatives by the Indian government, by UP government, which are being taken. However, I would like to know, not as a researcher, but as a young professional in this field, what do you think, how fast the climate migration is likely to happen? And really how important or how serious this is, because you have been on ground, and if you mention that and say, listen, don't worry, we have got 10-15 years, then our viewers and people who are watching this can have okay, isko baju mein rakho, that's not a big deal. But if you say that listen, I have been on ground, and I think within 2 years we are going to have so much stressed out that we are this is important, so guys, look at it. So if you say that, so all three of you, these are my observations and comments. Well done again, and this platform, hopefully it gives you a boost to continue your work. All right, I'll leave it to Manas to comment more on this, because there will be a different viewpoint from Manas, I'm sure.
No, thanks, Nimit, and thank you, Shikha and Aditi and Satorupa for your presentations. I think what stood out in your topics and your presentations was each of you had a very clear focus on a very specific issue, and yet it's an issue that has a wider relevance to a large number of towns and cities, both in India and even internationally. So let me make some comments and questions, and hopefully we'll get some answers from you after that. So starting with Satorupa, so industrial towns have often been set up with the in India. We have seen a lot of industrial towns set up, but they were set up for a certain industry or for a certain business company, factory towns, etc. Whereas here you have an example where an industry has grown up organically and has come to dominate the character of the town. So it's a kind of slightly different situation. So what would be interesting to look at is what has been the journey like from the interaction of business, government, and society. Has it been a conscious process? Has it just happened alongside each other where everyone was doing their own thing? Could the process have been made better for the businesses and the citizens had there been more integration and more planning between these three groups as the industry evolved, right? Or did it kind of happen each doing their own thing, and then you have the problem because you have issues because problems fall through the gaps? Ultimately, the question is being dependent on a single industry, what are the risks it entails from an economic, from an environmental, from a political perspective also? How does the character of citizenship in that town change, and dependency, what kind of dependency evolves? So those are interesting, bigger picture questions to think about, but very good topic that you have chosen, and it's very important if you want to create more employment and have a stronger economy going forward. With Aditi, a very good exploration of the topic. Maybe I'd like to zoom out a little bit and play a little devil's advocate here and say, the topic you explored, a lot of what we see under heritage and conservation and culture in India is often a very hodgepodge, single-dimensional effort. Whereas when you see what heritage conservation or historic conservation should be, it has to be a part of the plan. It has to involve multiple elements. It has to be long-term planning. You can't do something today, something else tomorrow, do this now, do that later, right? And that raises the questions around things like what's the real value of heritage to many of these towns? I can understand you have a tourist town where people come for that experience. Are a lot of us really benefiting from this heritage conservation, or is it kind of some sort of holding on to the past? Are there certain people who benefit from it? But what do people actually live there really feel about it? Do they care, or do they feel that you're tying my hands up and I can't do anything over here because the town wants to promote some idea of heritage or history? And I think those are very. I'm not some sort of insensitive, sort of cold-hearted, person, but the issue that when we think about urban renewal and how cities have to adapt for the future, sometimes, holding on to the past can be difficult, especially if you don't have an overall plan and the resources to do it the right way. And then you depend on this sort of half-baked market mechanism. Tomorrow, real estate market in Ahmedabad collapses for 5 years due to a recession. What happens to history and culture and all these people who are kind of, whose quality of life is really hanging in the balance, right? So did you come up against some of these issues or the bigger picture stuff as you went about your research, and what did you think about, what does it cost to do heritage right? And do we have those kind of resources and thinking and ability? And is that really a priority for Indian cities? So again, this is a devil's advocate view. I'm not saying that forget heritage. I believe it should be done, but I also believe it should be done the right way, and done the wrong way, it may actually become more of a problem than a benefit. And with Shikha, absolutely, as 𝗵𝗵 said, heat is an issue that is not often discussed. Urban heat islands and the kind of different impacts it has. And what I really liked is looking at, all of our cities are suffering from this at some level or the other. It's not just particular to Jhansi, right? And the problem, I would say maybe partly answering what 𝗵𝗵 asked, is that the problem is today. The problem was yesterday. It's not about the future, right? I mean, heat is affecting us today. Air pollution is another issue which is highly localized and is affecting our health and our livelihoods and quality of life right now. And so to think about what are the high impact solutions which can be done within 6 months, within 1 year, within 2 years at a reasonable cost. Then you get to the higher cost interventions. And again, does this, how does this integrate with the overall policy, planning, the different schemes? Are you doing Make in India without considering the environment and impact on heat and then trying to address heat island issues? Or should those be integrated into the overall, planning and thinking? of quality of life, sustainability, urban services, urban governance, etc. So that would be a question of, is this again like a one-off thing, put some trees here, put that, how do they come into the overall planning process, which clearly seems to be a weakness for Indian cities. But thank you very much. I think all of you highlighted important and interesting points. And I really hope you have a chance to continue this conversation and draw attention to these issues because they are important issues. So good luck.
Thank you, Manas sir and Nimit sir, for this wonderful comments and feedbacks. I will start with the same flow. Maybe Satorupa, you can answer the questions of Manas sir and Nimit sir, and then Aditi, and then Shikha.
Like as Manas sir asked, like how the interactions happened and about the integration. So I would like to mention that as Morbi, it is like industrial growth, definitely organic growth there, and the integration is very rare, I must say, because I have through the field visits and with the continuous interactions with industrial owners, there is this ceramic association there. So I have also interviewed the officials and definitely the authorities of the urban local body. So there is this lack of integration. Because the political influence plays a role here. As because of this political and internal disputes among the authorities, there is already a problem, as I mentioned, with drawing the boundary, just drawing a mere boundary of the entire town. It is a very so when there is a very lacking of the integrated planning, like integrating all the residential aspect and industrial aspect at the same time. So definitely there is a lack of integration. And when I try to interact, like how the interaction was, like the interaction, I would not say it was very easy. If I divide it in 3 parameters, like first thing with the authority, it was good because the authority were actually very cooperative. Like with all the maps and all the data they had, they actually tried to cooperate. But the problem came from the side of the industrial owners, but which is also very understandable. But they were not ready to share that what is the profit, what is the turnover, because that is usually secret. So what I did is that for that data, it is a data collected from around 6 to 7 owners, and then it is like a cross verification and triangulation method that I have followed here. And for the local residents, again, it was very easy interview process because they were ready to interact as there something can happen with their place. And then some of them are also suffering from the infrastructure issue and inadequacy, so they were ready to converse. Also the scalability of the work, I'd say that I am very sure that there are many the other industrial towns, this kind of work can be done. Like as Manas and Nimit sir mentioned, that there have been many works regarding the economic development solely, but if we try to document the entire urban landscape, it might be a good thing to see how these towns are actually growing. Basically, I would like to say that regarding the scalability, there is a huge chance to expand it further. There are many industrial towns in India which are a very small town, but they are depending on the very mono-industrial pattern. So there is this chance to look into the entire urban morphology from a broader aspect, not only the economic development, but more from a physical planning thing, so that the urban development sector is also catered. Also, lastly, answering to Manas sir's question about what if the economy suddenly falls down. So definitely there is this risk. I should say that as I was interviewing the people, that around maybe 60%, around roughly saying 50 to 60% of the residents there, they solely depend on the industry for livelihood. Maybe more than that, I am mentioning a rough figure. So definitely there is a risk, and there can be some alternative strategies we develop. That was not the scope of my study, but there is the chance of our future research there, that maybe some alternative scope of strategy, because sometimes if the demand suddenly reduces, so there will be a chance that the entire economy will definitely face a loss. So yes, that is it.
Adu, answer.
So I'll start by addressing the 2 points which 𝗬𝗵C sir highlighted first. The experience and the challenges with this project. So if you see, I have been looking into one particular aspect, benefiting the heritage precincts and areas with the lens of urban planning. So this was an incentive which was introduced by the government itself. But the problem is not, all the Indian cities with the historic cores have such type of guidelines in place. Maybe Ahmedabad is one of the cities which have actually started putting up these sort of guidelines and providing relaxations and incentives to benefit the owners of the heritage structure. Because we have never been looking into heritage conservation in terms of preserving a precinct or in terms of preserving a whole landscape. We have been always targeted towards preserving a complete one structure maybe, or a monument. So that is the issue which the world has recognized right now, and maybe India is also recognizing at this stage. And that is the reason you are looking into the projects which have been introduced in various cities maybe, which are not aligned to this particular perspective, which do not include stakeholders' consent and their involvement in planning of those particular areas. And that's the reason I didn't have enough data sets to support this particular type of research. And that's why I was on ground mostly. And I interacted with the residents, the locals of that place. I interacted with the urban local bodies, various officials. I read the documents from UNESCO. I read about the shared heritage aspect, the historic landscape aspect. And I realized that there is a lot of work which still needs to be done. A lot of detailing out still needs to be put into place in terms of providing these particular guidelines. Because when you mention that this is a walled city and you draw a periphery out of it, you have to also recognize what are the sub-parts in it. What are the various different locations and what type of significance, authenticity and value they hold in terms of contributing to the sustainable development of the city as a whole. And so this is one of the challenges which I was facing, not enough data sets, not enough deliberations made on this topic. And therefore, the process was generating these sort of things as a part of the project. The second is the scalability. So obviously, there are some cities like Hyderabad, West Bengal, New Delhi, which have recognized the potential of these underdeveloped lands, which have the log potential, which cannot develop themselves anymore. The ones which hold the historic value. So a type of mechanism which, and that's the reason I worked on this particular area, the type of mechanism which can benefit the owners and put them into a discussion directly with the sellers of whatever development rights they hold. So not aligning themselves according to not actually expecting something out of the government, but actually interacting directly into the market with the buyers and having negotiations like it has been done in various other cities like Seattle, which intends to redevelop or conserve a whole precinct, a historic district out of this concept. So this was another point for the scalability of the project, which can also be repeated as a pilot project in different cities in India with historic cores. The third is the view of urban planning, the lens of urban planning with respect to the heritage conservation aspect. So if you see the sustainable development goals also, goal 11, which talks about conservation of, which talks about sustainable development of the cities and urban areas, it has just one target, that is 11.4, which talks about heritage conservation. And it talks about the economic aspect of it. So we should keep in mind that the only stakeholder, which is the most important one, are the residents and the locals and what they want out of it. So we can't say that this is the history, as you said, and we need to preserve it. We have to see that what they actually want and what they're gaining out of it. Whether there is a motivation or inspiration within them itself to preserve what they are inheriting. And are they comfortable with it at all? So there were many issues on site where people didn't want to stay in such small house, which is around 60 square meter only. And they wanted to shift to peripheral areas where the cost of the house and the land was less. And that's the reason, putting out policies without concerning these stakeholders is, it is not going to work out at all. And sooner or later, when the city reaches its saturation in various different aspects, like environment, transportation, it will understand that this is where we went wrong. So right now, learning from other international case studies or from other cities in India, we should understand and accept that this is not the way to actually plan a city in a sustainable manner. So yeah, I think that's.
Thank you, Aditi. Shikha, if you can answer.
Yes, I was very much whatever the feedbacks I have the sir has given, I will try to improve them. And as I'm working with my guide also on these, like on the ground level also, we have started some little bit after the research work has done. So on the ground, the reality is very different. As government has said, like, yes, the heat action plan is there, but in some cities they are only working. In like the small cities, like people have no idea, like, okay, if the government is doing this thing or not, the awareness is not there, or they are only saying, yeah, we are affected, but only the health department is working on it. So there is no integration, like what the water supply department should do also, like how the water we can supply there to the slums area. The problem is for mainly are for the vulnerable communities who are very much affected, as there is the street vendors I have interviewed, they are affected a lot. As they said, they especially mention it, yes, there is an decrease in their income for during that days, as they don't go for the work. Also the health is also affected. And they are getting, like, climate change is there, and like the temperature is increasing and all, but they don't know like what to do next. They are switching like on the modern buildings. Yes, yes, we should transfer a cement slab or something, or when they don't have money, so they try like tin roof but if we see the ancient vernacular architecture, they have the ventilation techniques also, which, as Manisar has said, like, what can be done in within the 6 months or 1 year. Like, we should focus on the vernacular architecture. Like, yes, they has these concepts, like why there should be a veranda there, or why there should be a small windows, like in Rajasthan, we can say there was a purpose for that. So now these things are changing and people are affecting, and mainly the heat stress is which is affecting on the health part. So that's why has India has focused like to come up such plans. And but still there should be some more like vulnerability, like mapping is not there, the locations they don't have, like where is the slum area is marked, or what areas they are affected, like so that we can work on the green spaces. We can also talk about how much the green spaces is required on an urban area context also, or on a regional area also, as my study was focusing on the regional perspective. The regional perspective also, like what the plan should be done, and how we can like change the behavior change of a person. Because behavior change, yes, it will take time, but we should also focus on, like, these are the things like you should have changed something. Now the time has came to change yourself, your thought process also. And still the the vulnerable livelihood mission is going on, but they are mainly focusing on the women's only, for the financial services, like treating telling and teaching them how to open a bank account or something. They are not telling like what skill development you can do in these particular months from May to June or something like that. Or that the people are complaining about the work hours, the people who are working in Manrega, they don't get a sufficient time, or otherwise the income is cut. So these are the particular points which I have noticed, like yes, the problem is there, and we can take this step. and we can provide some else livelihood or the skill development. They can work on these days. And for the urban living perspective, I can say that mapping is one thing which is very important nowadays. And I have recently reading that yes, there is the is going on also for the Nagpur city. They have started for framework for vulnerability map in Nagpur, and I'm hoping like this will all other cities will do the same thing and suggest some more improvement in that. Thank you.
Thank you, Shikha, Aditi, Satorupa, and also Manas sir and Nir for this wonderful discussion with young professionals. I want to end this particular discussion by telling that there are lots of key challenges as we are looking towards the practical cities, right? So how cities are on ground practical, how people do what are their experience when they do a research work on ground, right? So as Aditi mentioned, Satorupa and Shikha mentioned about the data issues, about interdepartmental issues and various other things. I think key challenges comes with some good solutions, and you are the key people who can address this issues with a good solution, good practical solution. You have implemented this on, you have seen this on ground, right? So you can share that good experience also. With this, I would like to end this today's discussion, and thank you everyone for joining this live session. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Practical Cities. Best wishes to all of you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.